What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Daily Dose with Dylan Davis as we are streaming to you guys live through the Painted Lines Network on their Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube channel. So if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, like this video, and give them a follow on Twitter at the Painted Lines. Today is a very special edition of the Daily Dose, as in just a few moments we will be joined by 97.5 The Fanatics and one half of the Sixers Outsiders, Mr. Tyrone Johnson. He will be in here shortly. But first, I'm joined by my guys, Gint and Scotty. You can give them a follow at Matt_McGinty on Twitter, and give my man Scotty a follow at Scotty Drowned. Scott, last night, the premiere of Turf Talk. How do you think it went?
Yeah, man. I mean, we got some good views on there. I think it went really well. Had a lot of interaction with the viewers and stuff. Gint came over and threw some troll stuff in the comments there. Nah, man, it was fun, and this weekend should be even better this Sunday.
Yes, sir. I was hoping tonight would be a little better, but as Aaron Nola is having a stellar top of the first against the Brewers, as he's thrown over 30 pitches. I don't know if he got out of that inning. I missed that as we went live here. But guys, if you're watching, stay tuned, as Tyrone Johnson will be joining us very shortly, as we're just going to get his opinions on a lot of things, guys. Not just Sixers and the team behind me, as we'll get into their playoff outlook, the playoff rotation, their recent successes. They're on a 5-game winning streak. Healthy. Remember when the sky was falling, guys? Like a week ago? Remember when this Sixers team that was missing 3 starters and a couple rotation pieces, and they lost to the Bucks really badly? Oh man, I don't know. I don't know if they can beat the Bucks in a series now, let alone the Nets. Oh, they came back healthy and set a franchise record by the largest margin of victory over 3 games. I know the bench hasn't looked very good. Actually, they've looked terrible in the last 2 games at the end. However, the starters have looked very, very good.
Yeah. I mean, dude, how about that San Antonio game? And that was like one of the weirdest basketball games I feel like I ever watched. You blow a huge lead. Everything's going wrong with Ben, man. He probably, I tweeted, it was probably one of the worst game I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then he takes 2 charges in overtime and tips the game winner. And I was like, dude, get out of San Antonio. Grab your bags. Get on the plane, man. We got to get to Chicago ASAP.
All right. Here we go. Guys, welcome our guest, Mr. Tyrone Johnson. You can find him on 97.5 The Fanatic, and he's one half of the Sixers Outsiders on NBC Sports Philadelphia. Ty, how are you? And thank you for joining us again.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me.
All right, man. Let's just get right into business. And we'll start with the team in green that I know we're not at all very high on. We might play rock, paper, scissors, shoot to see who gets to ask what questions here tonight.
Yeah.
But I know you weren't very high on this Eagles draft class, the day of or the day after. Has your evaluation changed at all as time has passed, or are you still sticking in that D range?
I went up to a C, but I still don't love it. But that's the Eagles' fault, because they've had numerous bad drafts in a row, and now they're asking the fan base to give them the benefit of the doubt. And if people choose to do so, God bless them. I think they have to earn the benefit of the doubt, so I can't give them that. So when you draft a player with four season-ending surgeries in college at pick 37 overall, it taints the overall class for me. I know he's a good player, but that I can't ignore that. And if you ignore that with them especially, you're a fool, in my opinion. And that's why I can't give it, because how many starters did they get in this draft? You're talking about a 4-win team. There's holes going into the draft. They could have found a new starter at wide receiver, guard position, defensive end, defensive tackle, linebacker, corner, and safety. And they left with 1 starter. So how can I give it higher than a C?
Yeah, and real quick, one thing I don't think I ever expected to see was the fact that, most of the city hated Howie Roseman going into this weekend. And the amount of Howie stands I kind of saw on Twitter loving this draft class is kind of mind-numbing to me. But go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, so going into the draft, I think everyone really thought that the first pick would be a wideout or a corner. And then obviously you got your wide receiver 1, hopefully, in Devontae Smith. Were you surprised that they waited all the way till the 4th round to kind of address that second need in a corner and took a guy that might not be able to play on the outside?
I was surprised. We'll find out. Maybe they have decided that I don't know what their thinking is this year. Clearly, Howie drafted as if he has a lot of job security. He doesn't think he's going to be 1 year and done because there's a chance that his pick 37 overall doesn't play at all this year. We don't know what's going to happen with that knee injury. So I think that his latest knee injuries, he's had more than one. So I am surprised, but I guess they figure they'll get corners next year, and they must have intel that corner will be a good position next year. The only problem is we have to watch 17 games this year. And as of right now, you know about one of your corners, but we know Maddox can't play outside. So I guess Zach, the fourth round pick, Zach spelled with an E, is going to start at corner. I mean, no disrespect. I'm saying we all know it's weird to have Zach spelled with an E. Like, that's just weird. He didn't pick his name. It's not his fault, but that is mad weird.
He's not in Club Tyrone yet?
No, not unless he spells his name with an A.
And they made sure to correct everybody on that as well. They clarified that his name is spelled with an E. I actually got a question about Zach Ertz here. So obviously a ton of rumors going into the draft that he was going to be moved the first day of the draft. Now that he's still on the roster after the draft, what do you think the future is? Is there any way that he comes back to this roster, or do they just end up cutting him? What do you think?
Well, I think that's up to him. He's not going to come back. So the question is how much hardball does he want to play? Does he go nuclear where they have to cut him? Or does he just do the thing where they eventually trade him and hope that a tight end gets hurt? But I don't really like living like that. I think that's bad karma. But I think that's what Howie is set up by waiting so long. Like, they decided last year this time they weren't going to re-sign him. That's his business. If you're not going to do that, so trade him then. That's what the Andy Reid era, that's what they would have done. They would have traded him last year when he's coming off 80-plus catches and had value. Instead, they wait. He has the worst season of his career and gets injured, and then they try to trade him, and they're asking for a whole lot. This was misplayed by Howie Roseman. He's not going to come back, though. He hates Howie Roseman. Like, he's not going to come back. So people think, he's not coming back. So the question is, and I just something about it like, now you have to hope that a contender that has a good tight end, that tight end gets hurt, and then you can get a lot for him. And I just don't like living like that. Like, something about that, because I feel like that's bad karma you're putting into the air, and then one of your players end up getting hurt. I think it's bad cosmic energy, but I think that's what'll happen. And because it's the NFL, somebody will get hurt.
Yeah.
And that'll be that.
Go ahead, Scott.
All right. Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure I was next, but I got a follow-up question. What do you make of the war room footage with Howie and Tom Donahoe? Is that how you spell it?
Yeah.
Donahoe.
Yeah.
Is it nothing or is it something? What are your thoughts on that? It was kind of embarrassing, but my feeling is that that's kind of typical in a war room, that people are going to disagree. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the disagreement I don't really care about. That doesn't bother me at all. The part that I thought was odd was, if you notice, no one was excited after that pick. Like, the room was just normal. It's all not that they were not excited. I'm saying everybody was kind of just chilling at that point. Like, everybody's just like, all right, we made a pick. We hope the kid's good. And then Howie went out of his way to go try to initiate fist bumps with everybody. Like, he taps the owner, he taps this guy, that guy. Like, read the room, man. People aren't overjoyed. That doesn't mean that it's not a good pick. I'm saying this was not a celebratory situation. Howie tried to manufacture a celebratory situation, and you got what you got. The Donahoe thing, I don't think it's a big deal. It's just that read the room, Howie. Like, that was his issue. That was his issue with the Wentz thing. That was the issue with the Ertz thing. It doesn't seem like Howie's much of a people person, and he should have just recognized that this was a time where you kind of like air high five, sit your butt down, and get ready for the fourth round pick. And instead, he tried to manufacture this enthusiasm that no one else in the room had. And that was more my issue. Like, Howie, how come you're not getting better with people? This is your problem. We know you're good with a calculator. Learn people. You're bad with people. And that shows you he's still bad with people.
Yeah, we do have some comments real quick. Shane says drafting an injury-prone inside offensive lineman and then an undersized inside defensive lineman on day 2 is unforgivable. Andre T. Johnson says, I see my cousin Tyrone Johnson in the building. Yeah. And Sixers Wired is a big fan, and you're the GOAT, Ty. So welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. I don't know about the undersized interior lineman. I don't know. It's not really for me to size. It's more just the short arms. We'll see if guys will be able to get his hands on him, and whether or not he can get a punch and get, his hands on other guys. That's going to be something that's interesting to see. He's super athletic, though. and he's super quick. I don't know if that's necessarily a bad pick just yet. We'll have to find out. So I'm not really down on that pick, but also at the same time, I can't pretend like, oh yeah, that's a great pick. Like smaller school, some concerning measurables. There's a reason they do those measurables. Now, having great measurables doesn't mean that you can play, but I would imagine arms are somewhat important for a defensive tackle. And his being so short, I'm interested when he's playing against the best guards, the best centers in the world, how he reacts, because obviously the technique's going to be much better at this level than it was against the competition he played down there. But I do think he has a shot of being a good player. It's more for me. I can't draft a guy with 4 season-ending surgeries, 2 ankles and both knees. For me at 37, I can't do it. Now, let's say Howie had traded down, because you saw there was 1,000 trade downs in the second round. If he does a trade down and then takes them, but gets an extra 3rd round pick, and then they draft somebody, there was ways for me to accept it, but just sit at 37 and do it, to me, I don't get it. I still don't get it.
Well, I think my biggest issue is that he knocked night 1 out of the park, which I didn't even expect him to do that, but he knocked night 1 out of the park, and then he followed the rest of the weekend up with just
And
I thought we lost him for a second.
Well, my problem with the pick was just look at who else was on the board still. I mean, there's so many holes that we could have filled at like starters, and you get backup lineman that's injured, isn't even going to start the season like healthy, like let alone starting, but starting healthy in the season. So that was my biggest issue with it. I like Landon Dickerson. I think he's a great talent. 4 season
really talented.
4 season injuries. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, you can't, and you just can't do it if you stink. Now somebody will say, "Oh, the argument is you can because you stink." So that means you're telling us that we shouldn't watch football this year. See, it's very easy in this hypothetical bubble to say, "Oh, wait till 2022." Yeah, well, we're going to watch unless you don't want us to. I thought you expected us. And do you expect us to go to Eagles games and spend money in 2021? Then you do have to care about what happens in 2021. I don't think you can just completely ignore a whole season of football. But some people say, oh, you just wait. They have 3 first-round picks in 2022. Okay, what about this season? I do have to care. 4 wins was not acceptable for me. If you're going to come back with 5 wins and your defense is going to still stink, and as of right now, it appears the defense is not going to be very good unless they do something we're not aware of. I think that's unfair bargain to the fans, especially if you're asking them to spend money. Now, if you're going to give tickets away for free, do whatever you want.
Right. And they'll still sell out, and that's how Howie gets to keep his job, and then he'll live till next draft, and then those picks will need time to develop. So one last question on the Birds, Ty, before we move on to the Sixers for you is, and again, we'll have this conversation months down the line because we're not anywhere near even training camp yet, but just what are your overall thoughts? I mean, I've heard you speak. I've seen you on Twitter about the new head coach. I've seen you on Twitter about Jalen Hurts. Just what are your expectations for this Sixers team? Like, I'm at the 5 to 6 win mark kind of, and it's very upsetting, and I don't want to be negative. Where are you at with this Eagles team?
Yeah, that's about where I'm at. There's still some issues. I still don't think the defense is good. And then you drafted a playmaker. Well, the question is, I ask over and over again, how many Pro Bowlers do they have on the team? How many Pro Bowlers do they have on the team? And you can say that doesn't matter, but it kind of does. And another thing I noticed was Tampa, I think 4 straight drafts, they got at least 2 starters every year, 2 rookie starters each year. And then you add Tom Brady, but it wasn't just Tom Brady. They're starting right tackle, they're starting linebacker, their best defensive player. They were both rookies. So this notion that like, oh, rookies shouldn't make an impact on year one. You no, like other teams do, like teams that win, you have to draft well at some point, or you end up in cap hell like the Eagles are. I guess 6. It's an extra game, and the extra games against the Jets. So if I spot you the 4 you got last year, because I don't think they got worse. 1 more is the Jets, because they're going to beat the Jets because the Jets are the Jets. And then 1 more. So I think 6 and 11, which sounds weird, but we're at 17 games now. So
very depressing, man. But let's get to the team that's not so depressing. And we're nearing the playoffs. And I know you've been outspoken about this rotation lately. And when I hear Doc say he doesn't care if he has to roll out 10, he actually said that Tyrese Maxey's going to play in the playoffs. That I don't believe that at all. But does that worry you at all that Doc, like over the course of the season, hasn't seemed to come down from his rotation at all, and nearing the playoffs, and he's making these comments? Does that worry you at all? And what would your rotation look like?
No, it doesn't worry me, because I mean, he's lying. but that's all right. This is a good kind of lie. It's not like a Howie Roseman lie. This is a good lie. This is a lie that keeps your bench players engaged, keeps them competitive, has them all thinking that if they play well in these regular season games and help the team, they'll play in the playoffs, even though they're not gonna. So I think that's a good lie in that way. And also because the schedule, like they have 5 games in 7 nights. Like they play Sunday, Monday, they play Wednesday, then they play Thursday, then they play Friday, Saturday. They have 5 games in 7 nights. You need to use all these guys, even though it's unpleasant. And I think the biggest reason he's doing that is because of this wild schedule. I don't think it's because he wants to. So I actually think he's being strategic. And if you look at all the major injuries around the league, outside of Embiid's knee, which ended up being not major, Anthony Davis, for example, missed more time with his injury than Joel Embiid did with his. LeBron still going to miss time. He's missing 2. He missed last night's game. He's going to miss 2 more games coming up. Jamal Murray, obviously the obvious one where he's out for the season, and that was in the last couple minutes of a back-to-back. I think under the circumstances, you have to play all these guys. As far as the playoffs go, I would play 8. I would only play 8, and my 3 off the bench would be Thibault, Hill, and Howard, and everyone else could basically be in street clothes unless it's a blowout, and I would just call it a day, and I would just play those 8 with the starters and go try to make the finals. I'm not playing Korkmaz. I'm not playing Shake Milton, unfortunately, because he went into a slump. That's sort of his own fault. Maxi's not playing. Like it's not happening. Tolliver, none of those guys are really going to play. If I'm in charge, I think he'll go 9 at least in the first couple rounds with Shake Milton, but I don't think he'll go beyond 9, and that won't be that abnormal.
That's funny you say that because Andre says Club Tyrone still have Shake as the VIP in the rotation. I think Doc goes to 8.
Yeah, I think he'll realize he has to go to 8. But it's set up nice with them being in the 1 seed. It just sets up nice where you're playing. I don't care what Washington's doing right now with Westbrook. The Sixers would beat that team. And I don't care what the Knicks are doing right now either. They beat that team in the second round, or the Hawks in the second round. They would beat those teams without – the Nets would be scrappy, but also Tibbs can't really coach in the playoffs because he's kind of a Neanderthal with his style. So he wouldn't open up like he just is. So – and Randall and all these guys that are playing all these big minutes in this – that's going to catch up to them. So the Sixers would beat them in the second round. But it really doesn't matter. And now Miami being in the 6th seed, they're going to avoid them completely. And then it's just, can they beat the Nets or the Bucks? So I think it lines up pretty well in that way. That's why the 1 seed's so important. That's why I was surprised when the Nets were okay kind of conceding it, because I guess they feel confident enough, despite the fact that their team hasn't been together, that they could beat both the Bucks and the Sixers in back-to-back series. I think that'd be pretty tough to do.
So let me ask you this, because obviously you just said Shake is on the out in your rotation. And fast forwarding to a Nets or Bucks series, pending that we only have to play 1. For Thibault, in a game that's a 7 to 9 point game against these teams with all this offensive firepower, him next to Ben on the court, is that something you really can see for an extended amount of time when you're trailing in those kind of games rather than Shake?
No, you have to play Hill with him, and Ben's going to play. So if Thibault's going to play 20 minutes, 18 minutes, let's say 18 minutes, he might have to play 9 with Ben Simmons, which wouldn't be optimal, but you're only playing 9 minutes. And then the other 9 are with Hill. You're also talking about you could put Tobias in that lineup. The biggest issue is you can't have Howard, Thibault, and Simmons. As long as you have Embiid on the floor with them, it's fine. It's when you have Howard, Thibault, and Simmons where it becomes a problem. I don't think you'll ever need to see that. And B's going to play 38 minutes, so Howard's only playing 10. Simmons is going to play 40 to 42, and Tobias is going to play 40 to 42. So there's not going to be that many bench minutes as there is, but most of the time that'll be either Curry, so he'll be out in those spots. So I think it'll be fine. But I would not do what you cannot do at all for even 1 minute in the playoffs is have Howard play with Simmons and Thibault. You could not do that. You would lose those minutes. You would lose every minute that you played those 3 together against the Bucks or the Nets. Every minute you would lose.
I agree. Go ahead, Scott.
So I really just have it's kind of a personal question from myself. I'm just really interested to see your take. If you had any concern about Toby and Ben going into the playoffs, who would be the guy that you're most concerned about out of those two? I guess what I'm asking is, who do you think will be the second star in this postseason, and who do you think should be the second star? who's it more important for them to be that second star in the team?
Well, they're going to get the 1 seed with Tobias being the number 2 offensive option. I don't think you change that in the playoffs. He's been their second best offensive player all year. As far as scoring, that's not going to suddenly change in the playoffs. Ben Simmons is not going to suddenly change. So you keep on doing that. The question then is, can Ben do more than he has done or do more defensively than he's done? And I do think there is a level that he is capable of raising his game. On offense, probably not, but on defense, and I think that's where you get it. But if the expectation is that Simmons is suddenly going to score, because Tobias has been a 20-point scorer. So when B's getting you 30 and Tobias is getting you 20, and now the expectation that Simmons is going to get 25, that's not going to happen. So it has to be Tobias like it's been all year.
Yeah, so we all know it's going to take all three of them. It's going to take all three of Ben, Joel, and Toby to have success in the playoffs. What other Sixer do you see stepping up consistently? Like, we know from game to game, Seth or Danny can get hot. Stop laughing, yo. Seth or Danny can get hot. But like Seth has shot close to 60% from 3 over the last like 5 or so games, or if not more. Is there a guy in the rotation that you can see stepping up consistently?
Well, I mean, Curry's going to probably shoot. He's not going to shoot 60% from 3, but he's going to be open a lot because as the game gets slower and they play more in the half court, Embiid's double teams might become triple teams, and you can't leave Tobias. He's been too good to leave him open. So now you're accounting for, and Danny Green's led the league in corner threes. So there's spacing there. I think Curry's going to play pretty well because he's going to be open a lot. And he's too good a shooter to leave open. And you still have to pick your poison. And then it just becomes, can Ben Simmons be just aggressive enough to where when guys drop back, do they drop back, say, to the foul line versus all the way to Joel Embiid's lap? If they drop all the way to Joel Embiid's lap, that's not a good look. If they drop to just the foul line, that's probably enough room for him to operate, get out to Curry. And I think Curry's going to be really good because I think he's going to be open. You got to pick your poison, and I think people will pick him, and I think he'll make shots. Because you look around, there's probably only one role player shooter that's as good as him, and that's Joe Harris. Nobody else in the East has a guy like him as a fifth option. Like that doesn't exist. So I think it'll be him, but it won't necessarily him playing well. It'll just be him being open and being a great natural shooter and making a bunch of open threes.
So not to be an ass, but I don't know if anyone notices this, but Roman Quinn is hurt again. So,
oh, he is.
Yeah, wow. I don't know if he got hit on the hand. He said, "Well,
he's always hurt."
Go ahead, Gint.
Last time we talked to you was actually trade deadline day, in which we got George Hill. Obviously, what have your thoughts been on him so far?
I mean, offensively, he hasn't done a whole lot, but the point is he's playing now, and there's still games to get it together. He's a veteran player. I think he looks healthy, which was the most important thing. I know when he didn't play right away after the trade deadline, there were fans worried about, oh, no, this is going to be like Fultz and Simmons and B's going to have this injury. He's never going to play for the Sixers. Oh, my God. He looks healthy. He's caught a couple bodies dunking on people. He looks spry. I think that's the most important thing. I think he still needs to just play more games to get the shooting stroke back just because he couldn't shoot a basketball for so long because of the wrist and the thumb surgeries. But overall, he looks good, and his defense has been incredible. And that's the profile that the team has to do. They're going to have to play excellent defense. And I think you're going to see at the end of games, a lot of times, you're going to see Green or Curry out of the game. And I think he's going to be closing games. That also allows you to do different stuff with Ben Simmons. If they're sagging off of him, at least let them sag him off where he's standing somewhere else other than having the ball at the top of the key. Make him go stand in the corner and give a different angle if that guy sags off rather than be right in Joel Embiid's lap in the center of the court, which happens way too often, or him standing in that dunker spot where he's not really a threat. A lot of times in the half court, I think having Hill with the ball up top and be able to create his own shot, do pick and roll stuff with Tobias, I think it really will provide something they have not had at all during this 4-year playoff run. So I think he's actually going to play dividends. But the most important thing was getting him healthy. He looks healthy. Let's get to the playoffs, and then all that experience that he has and the comfortability being in the playoffs, I think that'll pay off. He just needs to get there.
All right, Ty, before we let you go, I do have an all-NBA type of question here. I know we're going to watch it, and it's going to be extra basketball, but what are your thoughts on this play-in tournament? I don't think I've asked you this before. Obviously, we know why the NBA is doing it. It's to make up lost revenue. But just the thought that, okay, now a 7 seed's locked in because they get 7 or 8, but like a 10 seed that could be 6 games under 500 all year has a chance to make the postseason. What are your thoughts on the play-in tournament?
Well, there's a couple things. Also, then 12 seeds didn't want to buy players out because they think they could get to the 10 seed. And that's part of the reason why the buyout market was so dry. There was teams that fooled themselves into thinking they were still in contention because they only had to get to the 10 seed to get to the play-in. So that's one part. I didn't like that. And then the other part, look what it did to the schedule. Like, the reason the Sixers are playing 5 games in 7 nights is because they lost a week. Because they set aside a week between their last game is that Sunday against Orlando, and then their first playoff game at the earliest could be that Saturday. So during those 5 days, that could be, if they had 2 games that time, that's 2 less back-to-backs. I think the back-to-backs have hurt the league, period, having so many in such a short amount of time. So I think the juice hasn't been worth the squeeze. And also, like, yay, Washington's playing really well now for the 10 seed. Like, I don't care. Like, they shouldn't make the playoffs. They should be home. Like, just you've played 72 games, and now we have to figure out who gets to be at the bottom. And now the other team gets to sit for a week, which is good for rest, but then they might be rusty, and you're playing basketball games. And now it's not good for the league for the H seed to, like, win game 1. Like, it's not good. Like, people think it's good and, like, temporarily. But would you like to see Washington upset? Let's say Washington gets it with Westbrook, and then they go ahead and win the first round. Like, do you think that team that gives up 150 points a night, you think that would be good for them to advance? That'd be better for the league, a team that hasn't been good all year to advance? Like, why even give it a chance to happen? So I actually hate it.
Ty, are there any Eagles players in this draft class that can make Club Tyrone?
Yeah, there's a few that can make Club Tyrone. Not the first 2 picks. They're too good. What you call it? Gainwell is already in Club Tyrone. I love him. Gainwell, I love him. I thought that was a really good pick, actually. I think he can actually play. If he didn't opt out, I think he ends up getting drafted higher. I mean, running backs, it is what it is. I think he's going to help them. Like, he's going to play. He's better than Boston Scott.
Yeah.
Because he can do more things. Now we got to see it do it, but I think he's better than Boston Scott. In fact, he makes Boston Scott have the possibility of not making the team. And if you think about it, if he was your backup last year and this guy's better than him, that is your team being better. So, yeah, no, he's already in. And then any of the later guys can. It's just that what are the odds that they're going to be good? With Howie drafted, unfortunately, I don't feel so good about it. But if they've been drafted by somebody else, I might love them.
All right, Ty. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on tonight. You guys can go give him a follow on Twitter at Ty Johnson News and catch him every day on the Mike Missinelli Show on NBC Sports Philadelphia and Saturdays 9 to 12, Ty, for the Tyrone Johnson Show.
9 a.m. to 12. Yep, Tyrone Johnson Show on 97.5 The Fanatic.
And then we all know he is one half of the Sixers Outsider. Tyrone, thank you so much, man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Peace.
Later.
Awesome stuff. I can't believe I did that.
Dude, that's so good. Bro, so good.
That one had me
it wasn't even the fact that I just messed up the word. It was to have sex. Like, it just filled right in.
Bro, like, you didn't, they got multiple partners and everything.
Bro,
I think Gint's biting his lip in the top corner, and I'm just like,
what'd you expect me to do, bro? I was supposed to just not react. Like, come on, man.
I couldn't help it, dude. I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't help it. But
let me, bro. What were your guys' thoughts on the whole Shake thing?
You can go, Scott.
Yeah, he makes a good point. I mean, with George Hill, you don't need Shake to play, I guess you could say. So if he's turning the ball over, if he's not hitting shots, then yeah, I could see him getting removed from the rotation. Now, part of me feels like Doc is really invested in Shake. At the same time, you always see him coaching him up on the sidelines. It makes me feel like that he really thinks Shake. He thinks the world of Shake. So part of me feels like Doc will still throw him out there, but I get the reasoning behind what Tyrone said.
If he definitely can't handle the moment of round 1, like let's say we play, like we just mentioned, like a Washington or whatever, and he does look like timid, like he has in certain situations, I could definitely see it. My only thing is the question I kind of asked was, like, if we're down to 7 to 9 points and guys need a rest, like, I don't know how you can look to Matisse before you look to Shake in that kind of situation when you need buckets, when you're going up against guys that are going to score buckets. And I understand stopping them from scoring would obviously help that with Matisse, but when you're talking guys like James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Giannis, Chris Middleton,
right.
It's tough to stop those guys. So you got to kind of, which is why I brought up before the show with Dylan. I was like, dude, Doc's going to have his hands full in these series, man. It's going to be tough.
No, absolutely. My thing is, I don't think it'll happen either. I think like Scotty just said, they love Shake Milton, but I think it was nice. And I'm not saying this that I need like, oh, Tyrone Johnson agreed with me, but just like having someone who is so high on Shake be reasonable and like say like kind of what I've been trying. Like, remember a couple weeks ago when I was asking you guys, why does he always get a pass? And like, I just feel like, can you trust him? I think you're seeing that right now. And one of his biggest supporters literally says he can't trust him in a playoff series. So I think that's kind of eye-opening. I just don't think it's happening. Yeah, I think my Wi-Fi's got one bar at the moment. So if I am lagging, I apologize.
We can hear you. It's just your screen's a little fuzzy. That's all.
All right. One thing I wanted to get to, though, and we'll bounce around. We'll go back and forth with his interview, Eagles, Sixers, everything we want to do for the next half hour or so, guys, if you're down. But I do want to address something like how Tyrone brought up, selling tickets, like not like how people are still going to pay to go see the Eagles and blah, blah, blah. And that's how he gets away from it. This is just the one mindset I don't get with Eagles fans, not Philly fans, Eagles fans. And the Joe Show is a great guy. And I've done some Eagles pregame shows with him. But this is just some of the stuff I don't get. Howie did well in the draft. He goes on to talk about how he did well. We transition to Sixers. Sixers bench will lose the playoffs for the Sixers. Like, this is the Eagles fan, the mindset I'm talking about. No, you cannot give credit to this dumpster fire of a fan base. This is how they get away with it. And then in the next tone, put down a team that's 23 games over 500. I'm not saying the Sixers bench won't cost them the playoffs. I'm not saying the Sixers are going to win the finals. I'm just saying one team has a lot of reason for optimism. The other doesn't at the moment. And you flipped it. The Eagles had a great draft. Good job, Howie. Sixers are going to lose in the playoffs. What? This is why he has a job.
I'm glad you connected those dots and brought that up. That's a great point. Because you come on here telling us to be optimistic about Howie Roseman and his drafting, but we can't. Like, are we basing the Sixers bench like off the last two games? Is that what we're going off of?
Right.
Because we're not going to be running five guys off the bench. That's not going to happen.
I think that's one very important thing for people to realize that like don't watch the Sixers on a night in and night out basis is the fact that, okay, they look at the Sixers playing a bad team. They were up 20 points. The bench gave up the lead. Here's the thing in the playoffs, guys. That doesn't happen. They don't run five bench guys at the end of the third quarter and all the fourth quarter until the game gets back to a 4-point game.
You won't.
Yeah, if they're up by 30 or 28, a couple bench players are going to come in. And if it gets to like 18, the starters are going to come back in. 15, the starters are going to come back in. It doesn't get to 5, and they blew the game, and now the starters have to go put a lid on it again.
You won't see probably more than 10 minutes in a game where 2 out of 3 have been Tobias and Joel.
That's what I was.
Well, see, that's the thing.
The lineup staggered. All types of things are going to be different.
That's the thing.
Which is why, like,
I hope you're right, man.
Well, see, the thing is this, and Tyrone brought it up. It's like, this would be the point in the NBA season where rotations would start to shrink. You start to see what you're really getting. But like you said, 5 games and 7 nights, it's impossible to show that. So in round 1, you might not see it. In round 1 might where you would see maybe what you do in the last week of the regular season. And that's not a scary thing because I think whoever we play in round 1, we're going to handle. And I have that kind of faith because I'm optimistic to a team that's 23 games over 500. So you might start to see – you still might see 9. And then as the series goes on, you might then see 8, and then you kind of see what you're getting into.
Let me throw this to you guys, and it's one thing that he said when I asked him about the play-in tournament, and he talked about how on one side the Sixers will be getting rest for a week, and while these other teams are in game shape and all that, but in a season with a compacted schedule where they're playing 5 games and 7 nights and practice is so limited, that's now a week of practice, right? Like again, remember talking about Nova. They didn't have that. And then it's like, okay, well now they get that, however, that week or 6 days to practice. The Sixers, and it's an NBA and they probably don't need all that practice time, but with a team with a new roster, and I know they will have played 72 games, don't get me wrong, but with the injuries and the addition of George Hill, you get that week of practice time. I think that's kind of beneficial in itself.
You can go first, Scott.
I tend to agree with you there. You look at guys that like Joel Embiid, like Ben Simmons, like Tobias Harris that have been dealing with injuries all year. You give them a week to, kind of rejuvenate and get and refresh their bodies, their minds. I think it would be great after this grueling season. But in that sense, if you feel that way, then it's like, well, then that's a benefit for the first seed. So then, if you feel that way, it may not be that bad of an idea for the play-in tournament. What I think, the problem is, or maybe you guys will disagree, and I'll throw this question to you guys, but if you see a team like the Celtics or a team even like the Lakers, now obviously if the Lakers are in the 7th seed, they're probably not going to get, bounced. But if you saw playoffs without LeBron or playoffs without the Celtics, who have these huge fan bases, and they lose in the play-in tournament and they just don't make the playoffs, is that good for the NBA or is that bad? Because it evens the playing field more if LeBron's not in the playoffs. Obviously, I don't feel bad for LeBron. He's been to the finals like 17 years in a row. But is that good for the NBA in the end? Or are they kind of, shooting themselves in the foot?
Yeah, I definitely don't think it would be good in terms of the NBA landscape of viewership, all that kind of stuff, ticket sales, whatever. But it would be cool in terms of then the West is like, oh man, who can win this thing now? Well, the conference LeBron is in has been dominated by LeBron for how many years? But to go back to Dylan's point real quick, just to touch on one. So we were talking about obviously getting your body rejuvenated, and I think that's an important thing. But that's a long time, especially when guys are playing games. Because like Tyrone mentioned, so those teams are going to get they'll probably get 3 days off, play their first game. If that 7 seed wins, they're off till the playoffs officially start. So a week, I don't know if that's a long time or if it's not. It's like at the point where, you might see some rust and then you lose game 1 to a team that played 3 nights prior, 2 nights prior. So it's really hit or miss. And I think as an NBA player, for George Hill's perspective, you kind of need to play games to really you need to play games to kind of get acclimated to a team system. I don't think practice will really cut it. So to me, it's like it's so hit or miss with that little situation.
Right. But that is one thing I wanted to bring up too. You're talking about LeBron, and we're speaking on the play-in tournament. Gint, me and you have done shows with Gint. And here it is right now by Julian. He just says this. So me and you have done shows with Snap and George about who the greatest of all time is when it comes to the NBA. And I don't know where Scott stands, but me and you agree there. And it's as if number 2 on my list just continues to bother me. Like I find him so annoying, man. And it's like, shut up, dude. Shut up. You nothing. You made 0 comments about the play-in tournament when it didn't affect the Lakers, right? And now that you fall there, now that you fall into that tournament hole, whoever did that should be fired. You know what, dude? I don't want to hear it. Okay, go win the game.
Here's what I'm confused about. Like, that had to be voted on by the players, correct? Like, there's no way that
it was. Krell talked about this last time he was on the show.
That's what I thought.
You agreed to this.
Like, the players had to have agreed to this. So now it's like, well, first of all, if you go there and it should be 1 game for you. You have to play 1 extra game compared to everyone else.
Right.
How, I understand. And
unless he fought, the only way he doesn't make the playoffs is if he fell to the 8, lose the 7-8 matchup, and then lose to the winner of the 9-10. If he's 7, even if he loses the 7-8, he's still in the playoffs.
No.
Right?
No, so the 7 and 8 play, the loser of that has to play the winner of the 9-10. So there's 7.
Oh, right.
So yeah, I mean, they could get bounced, but metaphorically, it's like if you're the 7 and you lose 2 in a row and you lose to Golden State and then Memphis, like
can I tell you?
You probably don't deserve to play.
Can I share a little secret with you guys?
What?
Nothing on this planet would make me happier.
It's not gonna happen.
If they lost in the playoffs. I know it'll never happen. And they'll be back in the finals.
Are they still the favorite to win the West? They have to be, right?
What if they lost to the Warriors, man, after all that hating
with Steph?
finals, dude. Like Steph takes out LeBron in the play-in tournament. Like,
Oh, man.
And dude, the Lakers also just lost Schroeder for 10 to 14 days. Like,
Did they?
beat up, man.
He got put under like quarantine. I'm pretty sure.
They're
Like,
beat up.
It's tough, but then they ended up beating Denver last night out of nowhere. So like,
so one thing we can do real quick is me and Mark did this on a show last weekend where we looked at because the Sixers were a game and a half, I believe, or a game behind the Nets, and even though the Sixers had the very easy schedule remaining, and the Nets have a little bit more difficult with the back-to-back against Milwaukee.
Oh, that's on right now.
Is it?
Yeah,
we were trying to see how the Sixers could finish this year. Remember when Joel missed time and me and you ran through the schedule and tried to predict, what they could be by the time he got back? Me and Mark did that, and we had them at like 9-2 or 8-3 in the final 11, right? Well, now they come out and start 5-0 to wrap up this 11. Is it looking at the remaining schedule? Is it possible the Sixers team finishes with 50 wins and wins the last 6? They have at Rockets. That's a win to me.
Yeah.
Home versus the Pelicans. They got embarrassed in New Orleans the first time around. I don't think if they're healthy, I don't think they lose that game. Back to back with the Pistons. They win that. The last 2 are home and home against the Magic. They win those. So then it's at Pacers, at Heat in the middle. Is it possible the Sixers team goes 50 and 22?
I think it would depend on those last couple games, and like there's a chance that we could have it locked up by that if Brooklyn kind of slips up a little bit, and then maybe we don't play the guys against Miami.
Do you guys think that Brooklyn is going to just continue to play their guys and try to get that 1 seed? Like, do you think it's as important for them as it is for us?
That's super tough. Because I think a lot of people do think that they will steamroll. That they think they would just steamroll through everyone that wouldn't win.
Right.
But they're wheeling their guys out there right now. Obviously, they're playing Milwaukee tonight.
Because us playing is going to depend on, if we need to play our starters to get that 1 seed. Like, if that's the case, then I think we should beat the rest of these teams. We're healthy. We got everybody back. Knock on wood.
Yeah, for sure.
But the Pacers and the Heat, those would be the games. Maybe the Pelicans, just because they are trying to play. They're probably playing.
You Zion, homeboy.
Yeah. Hey, we saw it. We didn't have the answer for him, so maybe if he's tired that day. But no, I think they would be playing with a little bit of motivation that they could possibly get in up to the 10th seed and get in the playoff play-in tournament.
I just spilled a drink everywhere.
But I agree with you. I think after getting kind of dismantled last time, they'll go ahead and make a point to take care of business in New Orleans. Yeah,
but
I just spilled a drink all over the floor that I should be cleaning up, but the show must go on, boys. The show must go on.
So look at like Brooklyn's schedule too, just because I just peeked at it. Obviously, they're playing Milwaukee right now. Then they go at Dallas, at Denver. So that's 2 tough games, especially with the spot that Dallas is in right now. They're trying to avoid playing in that play-in tournament.
Yeah.
But then they go at Chicago, San Antonio, Chicago, Cleveland. So hopefully they can slip up in the next 2, and then you have to ideally think, like, if we're being realistic here, the Sixers probably slip up one of these games. Like, it's in their DNA at this point that it might very well be against Zion again, and he goes ballistic on us.
Miami's an interesting game because they may be playing for something, in that third to last game as well. They're only 35-30. They're probably trying to avoid the play-in tournament as well. So depending how they play out, they may be playing their starters and trying to.
I can't wait to lose that game in Miami at the end of the year.
I
don't want to see Miami in a series.
Adebayo will go off too, and that will set everybody off.
Yeah, for real, dude. So it's going to be a very interesting, what do we have, a week and a half left of this season for the Sixers. It's to the point, and I said this to you guys before, where, look, man, we can talk about the games that are being played on the show every day, but it's at the point where it's just it's the playoff time now. Like, we know what this team is, to be honest. We know what the matchups are going to look like. I said it before; they're not dropping to the 3. So they're going to be a 1 or 2. I think the 1 seed is, I wish I had some wood to knock on, but I don't see a way the Sixers don't get the 1 seed where they have a game up now. They'd have to drop 2 to Milwaukee. Like,
don't say that, man.
They would have to drop 2, and the Nets would have to win out.
Right.
No, yeah, you're right. Realistically, it is
like if I had to put my money on it, but yeah, I agree again. Like don't put it in the bucket just yet. But
we'll lose. Yeah, but
now they're gonna lose to the Rockets.
right.
Evan Porter Jr. is gonna have 55 points or
Oh
lose.
my goodness, man.
Oh shit. All right. Is there anything else you guys want to get into? It doesn't have to be Sixers to wrap up tonight's show, as the Phillies have a 2-1 lead now over Milwaukee.
Kutch homered or no?
Kutch homered in the bottom of the first, I think. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
Let me ask you guys this, because I mean we've been talking about it all season, right? Who at this point now? I know we've touched on it a couple different times, different segments. Who is your MVP? Do you guys still think it's the Joker? Do you think Steph has a chance to win it?
Okay. So, obviously, very near and dear to my heart. I would love for it to be Joel Embiid. I just don't think it's going to be at this point. I think it's the Joker, and I think that because the fact that he's kept Denver, he's elevating Denver after the Jamal Murray injury is the most impressive part. And, they had a loss one night where he only scored like 19 like a week and a half ago. And I was going to joke around with you guys and come on here and, compare it to when the Sixers would lose a game and Ben only had 19 and he needs to do more. I was going to bust people's balls, but the fact that they've lost how many games now post Jamal Murray? It's not a lot.
I think
Not a lot.
2.
Hey, I think last night was 7-1.
They're 9-2 since Jamal Murray got injured.
And I just think that's where it's going to go. Steph, because the Warriors, what seed is Golden State in?
I think there's 9 right now.
Yeah,
Don't get me wrong. What Steph done is
They're 8.
are they?
Yeah,
So
they're
don't
at
get me
8.
wrong. What Steph has done is beyond incredible. And
Hold
he's
on.
in the conversation.
Did you guys
But-
see Draymond's stat line last night?
Yeah,
11 points, 15 or 19 rebounds, 15 assists or something?
yeah.
What was
Bro.
Russ's a night or two ago?
14, 21, and 24. Like, jeez Louise. I know we just talked about Tyrone. It was like,
Yeah.
we would handle Washington. Don't get me wrong,
But still, dude, when I think Sixers 1 seed, I don't want Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook in the first round. Like, not that we can't sweep the Wizards because they're just not a good team all around.
The Hornets is that's the team I want. The
the
Hornets.
Bucks have played the Magic in the first round the last 2 years with DJ Augustine and Nick Vucevic, and we're going to get Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, dude.
No, but to answer your question again, I'm going to agree with Dylan there. It's the Joker. The way I look at it, I kind of look at it in a backwards fashion. Like I look at what could we say about Jokic that would not make him the MVP? You know what I mean? So the only thing that I could point to is just the fact that they're the 3 seed. That's the only thing that you could point to. He hasn't missed a game this season. He's averaging almost a triple-double as a center. I just feel as if Joel Embiid wins it, we're not going to be mad.
No.
If Joel Embiid was in Jokic's situation, we would be beating the table that he wins MVP right now. Like,
I agree.
So in that sense, without being a homer, I have to say Jokic there.
Yeah, man, it sucks because it's like we don't know if we'll ever see this dominant of a player again. Which I mean,
Giannis has moved back up into the conversation too, man.
and Mark made a great point today. He was like, he's just getting. I shouldn't say he's getting shafted. Is the term I shouldn't say, but I think his reputation of just losing in the playoffs is all of a sudden negating his way to an MVP, which shouldn't make sense because, like you said, we saw it on Sunday. First of all, that game on Sunday with Brooklyn and Milwaukee, that might be one of the best basketball games I think I've ever witnessed. Those two were just going at it, Kevin Durant and Giannis. But yeah,
Right. Let that happen a couple weeks from now when it's the 2 versus 3 matchup.
Rattle it out.
Through 7 games of that.
I'll be sitting there with a beer and some popcorn. This is great. Whoop each other's ass. Whoop each other's ass.
We're up 25 on New York at the same
Would you be rooting for anybody in that series?
I
I
would.
feel like it's almost like bad karma to root for somebody.
I think
That's true.
Bucks, you know what I mean?
Honestly, I'd rather for Sixers standpoint, we'd probably rather see Milwaukee. I think we all agree. But like a basketball standpoint, how great would it be if we put this Brooklyn team out of the playoffs, dude? Like
Yeah,
we just take down the Giant Slayers. We take down
Then again,
lineup.
I agree with you. However, Joel Embiid in Milwaukee sitting at center court or doing something. Because I don't think that's gone. That hasn't been forgotten, man.
Yeah,
And the two matchups after that happened haven't really been too fair with the injuries the Sixers had. So we will definitely see there. But again, you were right, by the way. Kutch hit his second homer. That's why they're up 2-1.
But he's 2 homers tonight?
Yeah, and Didi just singled to give the Phils another run.
He's getting tested tonight. There's no way.
Oh, he's chucked. Oh, he's safe. Wow.
But yeah, so obviously right now they're playing those two again, which is pretty cool. But dude, just touch on one other thing. Drew Holiday is a beast, man.
He had 14 in the first quarter.
Bro, he made Kyrie Irving disappear on Sunday. Like disappear. So I mean,
I can't wait to watch that series.
It's crazy, man, because Drew Holiday can somehow guard Tobias Harris and Ben Simmons too.
Dude, he posed a lot of problems. That was what I was saying. I was like, yeah, we're injury prone, so like we're gonna lose this game. But dude, I think they pose a lot of problems for both teams as much as Brooklyn and Philly do with each other. I mean, dude, Drew Holiday is.
Well, dude, that's why I said honestly, I'll give credit to Mark too. Weeks ago, people just like dismissed the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks aren't. Don't worry about the Bucks. It's the Nets. It's the Nets. It's the Nets. That's not true. That's not true. One last thing I do want to ask you guys though is, and I know it's going to sound corny, and it could be me just trying to talk myself into it to sound better for the Sixers, but like, dude, it feels like we've been saying, okay, the Nets are going to get healthy. They're going to be healthy. They're going to be healthy. They're going to be healthy. How much does chemistry play a role? Especially when you hear like Seth and Ben start talking about how now they're getting more comfortable together, and Seth in the offense, especially with the way he's heating up at the moment. Oh, who just hit a bomb? Bamboo Brad? Sorry, I got taken off course there, but 6-1 fightins.
Holy moly.
Yeah. So like how much does chemistry realistically play a role like this? And honestly, like, guys, I know it's all just an assumption that the Nets are going to be healthy once the playoffs roll around. Well, are they?
So this is something I have a conversation with one of my buddies all the time because he's a huge Nets are going to blow out everyone, and he makes a lot of good points. So we haven't seen a roster in terms of on paper domination. Like the Golden State team were really good, and chemistry was so important to them. Coming off screens, slipping screens, like. You had to be on the same page. And with these guys, it's kind of a different thing because it's three of just the best isolation basketball players in the league all time, whatever you want to name it. And it doesn't take much chemistry to do that kind of stuff. Now, where you'd run into some issues here is, I mean, Joe Harris is getting a lot more shots right now than he probably will with all three of them on the court. And he said, oh, no, Joe Harris still needs to get a lot of shots. And I was like, if Brooklyn loses a playoff game, Joe Harris takes more than 10 shots, they're going to go in the locker room. I think it would be Kyrie Irving would be the one to step up and say, me, James, and Kevin need this many shots. You shouldn't be taking – no one else should be taking this many shots. So I think that's where you kind of run into a chemistry issue because, I mean, like, besides the center on that team, whose screens is Joe Harris running off of? Like, I don't see Kevin Durant and James Harden setting off screens for Joe Harris to come flying off of it. So that's where I think you run the chemistry. But for me, the three stars, I don't know how important the chemistry is.
I agree. Just real quick is I get it, and I get that response. But has a team ever – and we had, like you said, we've never seen this before, so it's hard to say a team has never done it. But realistically, like, has a team ever been successful in the playoffs or won a championship with just pure – here you go, isolation. Here you go, isolation. Here you go, isolation. That hasn't happened before. And you're right. And we haven't seen three of the best isolation basketball players on the floor together, maybe ever like this, right? But like at the same time, there's no proof or fact that this works. Not to mention, they're still, if anyone says they figured it out defensively, that's just not that they're as bad as they once were, but they're not a good defensive team either. So it literally comes down to, can those three average 75 or 80 points?
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. And if they can't, they're not winning a championship. I'm saying it now. If those three can't average 75 plus together, they're not winning a chip. Now, I say that, and Blake Griffin will resurrect to 16 points a game, and Joe Harris will average 4 threes a game, and, I'll feel like an ass. But that's just where I stand right now. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, what I was going to say, it kind of feeds off your point there, but to answer your question, I think the chemistry matters the most on the defensive end. So you're going to see a bunch of guys out there, and who's the worst defender that you would say is on that team?
Kyrie, probably.
Probably Kyrie or James Harden, right? Yeah. James Harden's out right now. So, you think about defensive rotations, they tighten up. Things start moving a lot faster in the playoffs. And you don't want guys on the court that don't know where they belong.
And isn't that kind of where frustration can set in more when guys aren't in spots, when they're not getting help, when they're not rotating correctly?
Layups, you're seeing wide open shots in the corner. Right. I mean, we saw it with the Sixers during that streak of injuries where the defense just didn't look right. And all of a sudden now they're getting out on shooters. There's these open shots.
Right. And I don't want anyone watching this to think like we're reaching and like we're hoping that they don't have defensive chemistry to beat the net. Like that's the way we beat the net.
I mean,
I am chemistry,
but I don't think they will gather it either. Though.
Right. But like that's not my point. And my message to Sixers fans out there is this isn't the fanboy in me. Because I feel like I'm level-headed, I'm realistic when it comes to this team because I'm not out here saying the Sixers are going to beat the Nets, the Sixers are going to the final, Sixers are winning the NBA championship, anything like that. But I'm tired of bowing down, like feeling like we're bowing down, dude.
Yeah.
This team is 23 games over 500 for the first time in over 20 years. They've been the 1 seed consistently all season long. They have a game up with the tiebreaker over Brooklyn with how many games are left, dude? Like 6?
7.
Okay. 7.
Yeah.
So they're a week and a half, 2 weeks away from the playoffs and could potentially be the 1 seed. That means the East goes through Broad Street. You got that? The East goes through 2 of the top 5 defensive player of the year candidates. The East goes through one of the MVP candidates. You all got that? So no, I'm not bowing down to shit, dude.
Yeah, and just one more thing, 'cause I know we're going to hop off, watch this game. I mean, if you watch that game on Sunday, like, Brooklyn said, like, Giannis has to beat us. And he did just that. So, I mean, like, they left Blake Griffin on a complete island with Giannis. Like, they showed a couple of helps at the end of the game. Kevin Durant kind of was moving when he made a move with when he picked the ball up, tried to make some moves. But, like, Giannis was that efficient, and I can only see Joel Embiid being just as efficient, if not more efficient. Because I mean, we've talked about it now; he's the most dominant player in the game currently. So, I mean, I'm not sitting here. Joel's going to have 50, but like, there's ways to beat this team. This team's beatable. I know they didn't have James Harden, but James Harden wasn't stopping Giannis either. That wasn't changing with James Harden in the lineup.
Exactly, bro.
I wanted to ask you guys this one question, and maybe we can even kind of kick it to the side for the next show. A buddy of mine, after that game on Sunday, pointed out that the Bucks kind of laid out a footprint on how to defend the Nets, by not having your best defender on KD because KD is going to get his regardless. So what do you guys think about not putting Ben Simmons on Kevin Durant? You kind of just say, hey, Kevin Durant's going to do him. Let's try to shut down James Harden and Kyrie Irving because that's a more realistic goal. And it was my buddy Vance from Heat Ratio Sports. I do want to give him credit for that idea. But I just wanted to kind of toss that. Maybe that's a topic for another day. But I thought that was a pretty good idea, maybe waiting just until the end of the game to put Ben on Kevin Durant, and then you make that switch. But I thought that was a pretty interesting thought.
Yeah. And just a quick response. I love the idea of Ben guarding James Harden. I think it is the way to go. They've only outspoken about how James is going to have the ball in his hands the most. Kyrie's taking the back seat. He's going to play shooting guard.
Right.
Still handle the ball a bunch. And I think Tobias is a body you can throw at Kevin Durant that's a little bit stronger. He's a body to throw at Kevin Durant. Size-wise, he can match up a little bit. I mean, like you said, there's not a person that walks on this planet that can hold Kevin Durant to anything. And there probably really isn't a person that can hold James Harden to much either, but Ben Simmons is the stature to do it. He's tall, long, athletic. He's bigger than James Harden. So I love the idea of Ben getting the assignment to James Harden. But the issue there is like, who runs around with Joe Harris? But like, if Joe Harris is going to make 9 threes and we lose, maybe we might have to just take that to the chin and say,
it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's like losing to Steph Curry. You know what I mean? It's the same.
Yeah.
100%. And yeah, something just slipped my mind. Oh, that's where Matisse comes into play for me a little bit, because look, dude, I know it's just a self award, right? And I'm not getting too high on it, but the fact that he's literally looked at by the NBA as a whole as one of the top 5 defensive players right now. The reason he scared me was because of his youth and like, has he learned not to foul, to be overly aggressive, to cheat a lot of times, right? If he can learn to just be what he has been recently, he's huge. Dude, that is 2 of the top 5 defensive players in the year that both can guard wings, right? What do you need to guard Brooklyn or Milwaukee?
Yeah.
Wings, right? So he's a huge X factor in that point. However, he can't just do that and have 0 points in 22 minutes of play in the playoffs. I'm sorry. He's got to hit at least a 3 or 2. He's got to be a little bit involved on offense.
Yeah.
On that case. But real quick, Abe, no, it's not a new time slot. We just had Tyrone Johnson on tonight, and obviously he's a pretty busy man until 6, so we had to start at 7:30 tonight. But we will be back at 4 tomorrow. Gint, you should be around, and Mr. Vince Quinn from 94 WIP and CBS Sports Radio will be joining us. And then Scotty and I will have our second episode on Sunday of Turf Talk, where the great Rob Motti will be joining us to talk Eagles draft and some NFL as a whole. Very busy week here. Very busy week. And guys, be sure to go subscribe to DSM Media on YouTube. That is Scotty, Gint, and I's new YouTube channel, where we will be streaming live here on the Painted Lines, and then we'll just be taking snippets and doing a lot of fun content and throwing all on there for some extra content for you guys. So go check that out. I'm sure we'll have something with Ty's interview on there tomorrow. Not my slip up earlier during that, because that was something else. And then I spilled a drink everywhere. It's been one hell of a show tonight, guys. But go give my guys a follow on Twitter at Matt_McGinty, and give Scott a follow at Scotty Drown. Thank you so much for watching, and have a nice night.